You're my Lord, you're my Savior, you're my healer and my friend, and I draw ever near to you. You have shown the beginning, the whole story through the end, and I draw ever near to you. I lift up my hands and lift my voice to sing your praises. I draw ever near to you.
Shalom and welcome to Pure Lip Hebrew. I'm Kathleen Floyd-Youngs. I want to thank you for joining me for this introduction class. In this class, I want to share a bit about Pure Lip and lay some groundwork for this course before you start learning letters, vowels, and how to read them. Let's take a look at our agenda for the day. Why learn Hebrew? We're going to talk about source and target. Why Pure Lip Hebrew? We'll ask the question, who is Eliezer Ben Yehuda and what did he do? We'll bring in Psalm 139. This will be our warfare piece, and we'll need it. Comparisons. We're going to look at what will you be learning in this course. English 101. It's funny, but we're going to see as we progress that English and Hebrew are very different, and that's great news. We're going to talk about transliteration, Gematria, Jots and Tittles, and some other things. And then we'll cover what you need to do to get set up for your next class. In the beginning, Elohim spoke all into existence. Vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or. Elohim said he will be light, and he was light. Now, if he spoke, there had to be words. In the beginning was the Word. If there were words, then there were letters. If letters, then a language. I believe that he spoke everything into existence in the Hebrew tongue. So we could call Hebrew the native tongue of our Creator. When we source Hebrew and target Hebrew, we can see the unique expression of Hebrew. When we source and target Hebrew, it means that we will not come under the grammar governor of English. The grammar rules of Hebrew are very different. So if we can learn to read what we see in Hebrew, we won't lose the meaning in the translation to English or Greek, which is often distorted. We're also going to see some cultural ways in the Hebrew language that we really don't understand in our own language, in our own culture, because a culture is tied up in a language is tied up in the culture. So this will be an interesting thing as it unfolds for us. In my early years, I knew enough Hebrew to be dangerous. I saw this sign. It said Baruch haba, with a translation under it, as you see here, welcome, which is a good translation. It expresses what it says. But I went and I looked it up because I wanted to see what does it really say. And I found out that it says, blessed is the coming one. This really spoke to me deeply, and I liked that translation much better. It made me feel connected to something bigger, like my Messiah, like the Creator. And so I was further inspired to find out even more. So I kept at it, learning Hebrew. As you learn the Hebrew language, you'll begin to recognize many words in English and other languages that are taken from Hebrew. Let's look at some English words that come from Hebrew. Amen, hallelujah, cherub, sabbatical, jubilee. These are sort of evident that they're Hebrew. Maybe not. But how about cider, jacket, macadamia, bath, leviathan? This can be entertaining to see how these words came to our language. This is also true about cultural practices like spring cleaning, which originated with the command at the Passover to clean out all the leaven or sin from our borders. So why Pure Lip? Languages evolve faster than anything else. With much infusion and reduction of Hebrew, another language has been produced. I call this Hebronics, much like the English dialect dubbed Ebonics. In my first years learning Hebrew language, I received a Rhema word from Zephaniah 3:9. And it says, because then I will turn over or flip to nations, a pure lip, to proclaim all of them in the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, to serve him one shoulder. This is a power-packed verse, and at the heart of it is a pure lip that will hopefully bring us closer to Creator and into unity within the body of Messiah. It's interesting to think about how Joseph revealed himself to his brothers by speaking to them in Hebrew. Here at Pure Lip, we are engaged in nurturing the restoration the Father has willed for the nations to know his unique expression or native tongue. Yeshua prayed for this in John 17. He said, sanctify them, Holy Father, in your truth, for your word is truth, that all of them will be one. He said, I in them and you in me, that they will be perfected in unity, so that the world will know that you sent me and love them even as you have loved me. Learning the Hebrew language in order to understand the scriptures is a good way to begin to get on the same page with each other. Also, Creator desires a one-on-one relationship with each of us. Let's talk about direct revelation compared to reflected revelation. Okay, so direct revelation, we can use the sun as an analogy to see the sunlight comes directly to that. Father wants to reveal things to us directly between him and us. Okay, reflected revelation is when that light from the sun hits the moon and then comes to us. That's a reflected revelation. It's not coming directly. While we can learn from others, it's not the same. We're all unique beings, and what makes us unique is the way that we process in our thinking. We have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 arms in most cases, but we're different because of how we think. And Creator would love to have a one-of-a-kind relationship with every one of us. Who is Eliezer Ben Yehuda, and what did he do? Thanks to the life work of someone so zealous for the biblical Hebrew language that he and his family gave their lives for the cause of the revival of this language. Let's look at a quote from Eliezer. He says, the Hebrew language will go from the synagogue to the house of study, and from the house of study to the school. And from the school, it will come into the home and become a living language. We're ready for that language to come into our homes. Let's read a story about Eliezer, and it's kind of lengthy, but I feel that this story is very important, especially here at Pure Lip, because this is near the heart of what we do here. Eliezer was a Lithuanian-born Jew, born in January 1858, and he lived until 1922. As a young boy, Eliezer learned the biblical Hebrew language in a yeshiva, which is a Hebrew religious school. As would normally be expected, he did not become a rabbi, but he moved into the secular world. As he witnessed a war involving Russia, he was captivated by the concept of the Bulgarians being restored to their right on their own soil. He was so influenced by this for many other peoples that he then determined it for his own people, the Jews, that they be restored to their rights on their own soil, Israel. At this time, which was 1850, the Hebrew language was only used in worship and prayer services in the synagogues. Hebrew language was not used for daily conversation in the home or the marketplace. Eliezer believed that Jewish people should return home to Israel, which is known as making aliyah, it's an ascension, and that they should speak Hebrew in everyday conversations. He left Russia for Paris in 1878 to study medicine. In Paris, he contracted tuberculosis, which attacks the breathing abilities. Here's the warfare. The warfare against Eliezer no doubt made his heart strong enough to accomplish God's purpose to revive the Hebrew language in a strategic time frame. Eliezer arrived in Israel in 1881, and at that time a large wave of Jewish people with like backgrounds were returning to their home in the land of Israel. When Eliezer arrived, he made his residence in Jerusalem, and he spoke only Hebrew to the people that he met in his way. he found out that many of the people could converse. In 1882, Eliezer's wife Devorah bore him a son, and they named him Ben Yehuda, who was also known as Itamar bin Avi. Devorah tirelessly supported Eliezer's work. Though her mother tongue was Belarusian and Lithuanian, she only spoke Hebrew to her son and prohibited him from hearing any other language. Ben Sion's mother tongue was resultantly Hebrew. This made him the first native speaker or all Hebrew-speaking child since the 2nd century of the Common Era. Through this, Eliezer proved that Hebrew could be a successful language for all the necessary communication of everyday life. Therefore, even a whole community could thrive speaking Hebrew. In 1902, Devorah bore a daughter. Her name was Dola Ben Yehuda, and she was known as the driving spirit behind the revival of the Hebrew language. So Eliezer was a lexicographer. This is somebody who makes new words. He began teaching in Jerusalem in 1882. In 1890, the Hebrew Language Council was formed. From 1881 to 1921, in Israel, a generation was raised speaking Hebrew as their native tongue. It's noteworthy to consider that a nation cannot be a nation without a national language. The revival of the Hebrew language was an integral part of the revival of the nation of Israel. In 1948, the God of Israel established the nation of Israel and his people once again on the land he swore to their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Trivial note, in 1643 on American soil, the Hebrew language was being taught at Harvard University by a man named Rabbi Judah Moniz. So we can be grateful for the work that Eliezer and his family did, because the language he revived is the original language of the Bible. Now, what language will you be learning? Well, the Sephardic Biblical Hebrew, which is a Middle Eastern or an ancient Near Eastern dialect. This is the language or the dialect that Eliezer Ben Yehuda revived, compared to the Ashkenazi Hebrew, which is European. Okay, we can expect some resistance. If you're watching this video, I assume that learning Hebrew is important to you. As we saw in Zephaniah 3:9, it's important to Creator for us to receive this pure lip. Knowing this, I have put together a spiritual warfare piece. It will prove helpful to start your journey in learning Hebrew while establishing a routine of learning in your daily life. Let's look at Psalm 139. It says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that does my soul know full well. We are created to learn language, and I'm going to prove it to you. Here's a picture of a brain. See the colored areas? These are what a couple of scientists found to be the places in our brain that handle language processing. So this is all over here on the left side. So what I'd like to do is put our hand on the left side of our brain. This is part of our warfare, prayer, declaring, speaking to. So I'm going to speak to this left side of the brain here and say, wake up. Some of us have only learned one language, not to minimize that, but not everybody's bilingual, and we're on a path now to become that way. So we're going to want to wake up these parts of our brain that basically have been sleeping. Even though we speak and we use language and we're processing, there's only so many new networks that are built when we speak the tongue that we learned as a child. So we're going to speak to these parts of our brain here and say, wake up, blood flow, electricity spark, and blow out the cobwebs. And Father, we ask you to touch it. Touch these places, bring them to life, enable us to do this language learning that you obviously are concerned with, to mention it in your word. So we can do this anytime we get an unction to do that, and pray over our brains and expect to hear answers to our prayers from our Father. So let's look at some of the spiritual warfare points. What kind of things are we going to be up against? Well, we'll come up with that. I don't have any time to learn Hebrew. Well, we can't make time. And we don't manage time, but we do manage ourselves. And we do have priorities, and sometimes we shift our priorities. When something is important to us, we can find a place in our life for it. And it takes a while. Like I said, establishing a routine takes a little bit of time. And we can do the warfare in order to do that, because we want to make sure this isn't stolen from us either. So we can address this no time issue. How about I'm not gifted? I don't have linguistic skills. Well, not everybody does, but everybody is, as I showed you, created to learn languages, to speak and to learn other languages. So we're gonna cross that one off, because you go at your own pace. You may not go through it like somebody that's linguistically gifted, but you can still go through it. All right, injury. Maybe you had an injury. I've seen some amazing things. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. There was a show I watched about some men who were wounded in battle, and parts of their brains were blown off, and they lost motor skills. Well, through therapy, they were able to replace these motor skills in another part, like kind of grow them into another part of their brain. And it was amazing when the young man was in the car with his mother and he reaches to the radio with his arm he'd lost all motor skill from, and reach to the radio and say, "Oh, listen to this song, Mom," and then turn it up. And she just was amazed. And that is just, to me, so encouraging. It makes me realize how wonderfully we are made. How awesome. So if you have injuries, and some of us have burnt out a lot of brain cells too. It could be anything, but I just want you to know that that should not be something to stop you. If this is your desire to do this, we can overcome. What if you have dyslexia and we're flipping the language? Maybe some of this dyslexia is because we're reading from left to right instead of right to left, which was the original one. We've turned it backwards, and I've seen a lot of my students who had dyslexia just walk right out of it. So I want to give you hope for that, and don't let it be something that stops you. How about if you say you're too old or too young? Well, I have students who are in their late 80s, 87 years old, and I have students who go and they just start teaching their children. Listen, children can learn languages like sponges take in water. So you're never too old or too young, because we've got the equipment. Remember, we just may have to blow out the cobwebs. You may say, I don't need it right now. I don't have a need for learning Hebrew. I'll know all that later when the Messiah comes back and we'll all be one in the Spirit. Well, maybe, maybe not. And the way that I look at it is that I have a relationship with God right now, and He wants it to grow. And I can tell you that when you start learning Hebrew, you will begin to see things that you could never see in English. And it's Him revealing His image, His heart, His ways, the culture that it was written in. It helps us understand so much more than what we understand now. And it restores us to Him. So there is a need for it now. You just don't know what it is yet, possibly. Because there are things I don't know, and I don't even know that I don't know them. But I'm going to pop that bubble for you today and say there are things you don't know that you don't even know you don't know. And once you know them, you're going to go, wow, I'm glad I know this. Okay, so we can address that too. Let's dispel the lie that says we can't learn Hebrew and get all of the excuses out of the way. If this is a desire in your heart, go for it. You can start with a little, and if that's enough, great, because a little is a lot. If you want more, you just keep going. You set your pace. Now, I will try to answer some questions that you may already have. So let's talk a little bit about the course. We will discipline our studies by using a textbook. In addition, I will bring in other elements that are unique to this course and are proven methods and fun, I might add, proven methods of successfully learning Hebrew language. And having fun is always good. It helps you learn. It gets all those endorphins and dopamines going, which enable you to learn more successfully. Let's look at some comparisons. English is made up of many languages, so it's very confusing. They say it is the hardest to learn. English. First one, English is a borrowed language. It's made up of multiple languages. It's noun oriented. That's something to meditate on. There are 26 letters. Some are vowels and some are consonants. Some letters are capital and some are lowercase. We have different forms. If you don't know English, you can't read it. Have you ever heard about the sat and kirkle? There are different dialects from England, from Australia, from the United States, and English is read from right to left. The English or Greek mindset takes a hypothesis or a belief and then seeks to prove it in the scriptures, to formulate in proof that which one believes to be true doctrine. Hebrew is firstly based on actions, words put into motion. His word does not return to him void. Hebrew is a primary Semitic language. Semitic means it started with Shem, the line of Shem. It's verb oriented, so it's about action. Our identity should be wrapped up in who we are, who we be, not what we do. But what we do is very important after we find out who we are. Hebrew is a concrete word picture language, and as we progress, you're going to see, what does that really mean? There are 22 letters, and they're all consonants. Hebrew letters have only one form. Now, there are 5 Hebrew letters that have a slightly different form when they're on the end of a word. Hebrew letters and vowels are nearly always, let me say that again, nearly always pronounced the same, which is good news. Hebrew is read from right to left. Initially, there were no vowels. It was just the letters, just the consonants. The Hebrew mindset sees a concept woven like a tapestry within the whole of Scripture, as the fuller message of Creator is unwrapped in our relationship with Him in the spirit of the Word. The key is to approach Him knowing nothing and seek to find out who He is and ask Him to teach you His ways. Now, one last look at English. English 101. We'll begin with a box, and the plural is boxes. But the plural of ox became oxen, not oxes. One fowl is a goose, but 2 are called geese, yet the plural of moose should never be meese. You may find a lone mouse or a nest full of mice, yet the plural of houses, houses, not heis. If the plural of man is always called men, why shouldn't the plural of pan be called pen? If I spoke of my foot and show you my feet, and I give you a boot, would a pair be called beat? If one is a tooth and a whole set are teeth, why shouldn't the plural of booth be called beeth? Then 1 may be that, and 3 would be those, yet hat in the plural would never be hose. And the plural of cat is cats, not coes. We speak of a brother and also of brethren, but though we say mother, we never say methrin. Then the masculine pronouns are he, his, and him, but imagine the feminine, she, shiz, and shem. I really like that. I've read it so many times, but I'll tell you, I laugh even more because we can be glad that biblical Hebrew is very different than English. So, we will be learning 3 scripts. Now, no worries. You learned 4 scripts in English. This is totally doable. Let's look at the 3 scripts. We're going to learn Babylonian and Paleo. That top line is the Babylonian. The one under it, the little pictures, are the Paleo. We're going to learn cursive. It's important to know all of these, just like the 4 English. All three of these are used in Israel today. Let's take a look at the ancient Paleo word pictures. Word pictures were the letters. You spell words with these pictures, so you have a story in every word. These visuals are a wonderful way to learn. It's much like a children's word picture book. Since we learn like children, he knew how to teach us. How about the Babylonian script? This is awesome. This was conceived in Babylon during the exile of the Hebrew nobles taken by King Nebuchadnezzar. This Babylonian script is mostly comprised of Paleo letters joined to tell the story of the righteous son. And last but not least, let's take a look at the cursive script. This is a flowing script used in modern times for letters and other handwritten communications. Through my research, I've found that they're not able to date the origins of this script, which is quite interesting. Now, what are nekudot? Well, they're vowel pointings. The Hebrew language was vowelless once it was written down, and it was just the letters, like this, until almost 1,000 years after the resurrection of the Messiah. Then we added dashes and dots above and below and inside of the letters to make the vowels. The Masoretic Jews in the Galilee designed the written vowels, and there's actually even a museum there. Now, let's take a look. Here we have the consonants. I liken that to trees. Now, here we have a word with the consonants and the vowels. I liken that to the wind blowing through the trees. Vowels are all breath. You say them with your mouth open. Ah, eh, e, o, u. But the trees are rooted. B, g, d, z. With the introduction of the vowels, we can now see the wind blowing through the trees, and anybody can learn the language. The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it, but do not know where it comes from and where it goes. Kudos to the Masoretic Jews. Let's talk about translation and transliteration. Translation is when you take a word in Hebrew, like this one right here. This is Hallel. It means praise. That's a translation. But a transliteration is when I take that same Hebrew word Hallel and I use my English letters to spell it out so that I can actually read it without knowing any Hebrew at all. Let's look at another example. Here's our translation. Here is the word shalom. It means peace. Or my favorite translation is nothing missing, nothing broken. But the transliteration, again, here's that same word. I will use English letters to phonetically sound out and spell that word in my language so that I can read Hebrew without knowing any of these symbols or vowels. Shalom. Hebrew allows us some practice to become better at being intimate. The watchword of Israel from Deuteronomy or Devarim 6:4-9. It says, Shema Yisrael, Yod Hewalhe Eloheinu, Yod Hewalhe Echad. Hear Israel, Yod Hewalhe is our God. Yod Hewalhe is one. The mighty one of Israel is one. Let's take a look at a couple of words. The word on the right is echad. The word on the left is acher. The word on the right means one. The word on the left means another. Look at the two letters. These are the only differences in these words. And look at how close these letters resemble each other. This is why I say we need to be intimate. That slight difference in those letters makes the difference between our God is one, not just another from a plethora of gods that you're leaving behind in Israel. In Egypt. So the mighty one of Israel is one, not just another. And this is very important, these jots and tittles, these small markings, these places where we get intimate and associate and personalize things about the language as we get to know him one letter at a time. Now, Yeshua said in Matthew, "Think not that I have come to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to completely reveal in its intended fullness. For truly I say to you, until the current heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or tittle shall by any means pass from the Torah until all be fulfilled." Every mark is important to the master, and thereby can be important to us. Every Hebrew letter also has a number or a numeric value. This is called Gematria or Numerics. Let's take a look. Here we have a Hebrew word. This is Av. Now here's our transliteration and our translation. Let's look at the value of these letters. Aleph is worth 1 point. Beit is worth 2. This word's numeric value is 3. The next word we're going to look at is Ima, mother. And the numeric value goes this way. The Aleph is worth 1 and the Mem is worth 40. The numeric value of the word mother is 41. Next on our list, we have Yeled, which is a male child. And the numeric value for the Yod is 10, for the Lamed is 30, and for the Dalet is 4, which equals 44. You may have seen this already. 3 plus 41 equals 44. Now, I find this aspect of Hebrew fun and awe-inspiring, though we don't want to go overboard with this and let certain things carve our choices or run our lives, but we do want to pay attention. I call these it's numerics, not numerology. And it all falls sort of under the title of Bible codes. These are just some examples. Here's another one. It's called equidistant letter and number sequencing. Excuse me. If we start at the beginning and the end of the first 5 books of the Bible, the books of Moses or the Torah, every 50th letter spells out Torah. Then meeting in the middle, the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, we find the feasts of the Lord. Here we see every 7th letter spelled Yod He Waw He. This is the memorial name or proper name of the Creator. It means the uncreated one, the pre-existent one, the uncreated Creator. Now, these are just some examples of the Bible codes that are embedded in the scriptures. You've probably heard about dates and names of things that have happened in history. There's a lot that we don't see in English, and we will only see it in the Hebrew. Now, the language of the Hebrew scriptures is a living language and has so many wonderful facets. We have laid a foundation to get you started in your spiritual journey of learning the Hebrew language and growing in personal intimacy with the Holy One of Israel. Let's look at some of the options we offer for your upcoming journey by asking the question, how much Hebrew would you like to learn? You may want to learn a little. In a short 6-week course, you can learn the letters and the vowels and how to read them. Learn about the Creator's reckoning of time and how to use an online concordance. In 10 weeks, you can learn all of the above, but you will learn enough Hebrew to be able to read any Hebrew text. Or you could go further, learn all the basic Hebrew grammar. This is a strong foundation to prepare you to be able to move in any direction that you want to go in. Our postgrad level is a continued study in selected readings of the Hebrew Scriptures. And the Pure Lip Hebrew Mechanical Translation Project is where students come together in a peer setting with the instructor to learn as we translate the weekly Torah portions. Pure Lip offers various platforms to learn the Hebrew language. You could buy downloaded classes that would be recorded classes just like this one and the one that you're going to get next for free. Or you could do live online classes. Now these are, let me make this clear, our live online classes are live, face to face in real time. It's like we're sitting across the table from each other. And there's a lot of good benefits in those live online classes. You could take a private class or a small or large group class. You could do a family group class. These are a lot of fun. Or maybe your whole congregation wants to learn Hebrew, and we could, if you're in our area, we can do it in person, or we can bring it in online. You might want to do your bar or bat mitzvah training. So you can visit our website for more info. Your next step is going to be to view the free first class video where you will learn letters and vowels and begin to read short syllables. Now, the upcoming free class will be the first Hebrew language lesson. It will be different than this class. So what do you need to get ready for your next class and the course? Well, you need to make a folder for your course resources that you'll be sent via email. You need to get a 5-color set of highlighter gel pens. I like the gel better. They don't bleed and you can leave them open and they won't dry out. You'll need notebook paper and pencil. You'll need to set up a free Dropbox account. This is where the sound bites of the exercises will be sent to you. That way you can hear the pronunciations and know that you're on track. Online students will need to perform a test class to get all of our things in order before we start. You'll need to enroll to begin your registration. And your textbook info for ordering your textbook will be provided after enrollment once we have a start date. Now, this concludes the introduction class, and you're now ready to move on to your free first class, where, like I said, you will learn Hebrew letters and vowels and begin to read short syllables. You can pull up our website and contact us for more details, and then go straight to enrollment to begin your registration. And if you have any questions that didn't get answered, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to fill you in and make sure you've got all the info that you need going forward. Toda rabah. Thank you very much for joining me for this introduction class. Lehitraot bakita. I'll see you in the classroom. Shalom, shalom.